Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IS English. In our today's video, we are going to talk about Senkaku Islands. Senkaku Island has been in news recently for some reasons. So what is the reason? Why is it in news? With which this dispute is all about the control of Senkaku Islands? Everything we are going to cover in our today's video. Now, have you ever thought, why are we covering this video specifically in our today's discussion? I'll give you a very solid reason. And this reason is the UPSC PYQ that appeared in the year 2022. Just read it. Which one of the following statement best reflects the issue with Senkaku Islands? So in order to solve this question and to know more about this issue, we have to understand this issue in detail. So this is what we are going to do in our today's video, and the notes that I will be using in this session, in case if you want to download them, they will be available on a particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live. And while you're in this channel downloading the notes, please do not forget to subscribe to it also. Okay, so let us start by understanding the context of our recent development. Now, I need to know Japan has a new prime minister right now, Mrs. Sanae Takaichi, and she's one of the proteges of a very famous politician of Japan who is sadly or unfortunately not with us anymore, Mr. Shinzo Abe. Now, she made a comment which created a diplomatic row with her country, that is Japan, and with China. She made a statement that if China were to intervene militarily in the Taiwan, it would elicit a similar response by Tokyo also. So this is the comment that she made, and naturally it infuriated the Chinese. So as a response, they not just made a snide comment on her, but they also ensured that their Coast Guard ship actually traveled very close to the waters of Senkaku Island. So where is the Senkaku Island located actually? Why is Senkaku Island having a long and contentious history? Everything we are going to find out in our today's video, okay? Now you need to understand Senkaku Island is an island which is referred to it by different names. For example, the Japanese call it Senkaku Island, with which it is most popularly known by. Similarly, the Chinese called it as Diaoyu Island. On the other hand, Taiwan, who also claims sovereignty over these islands, they call it Diaoyutai Islands. So these are the multiple names of Senkaku Islands. Now I need to understand Japan, China as well as Taiwan, all of these three countries claim sovereignty over the Senkaku Island. On the other hand, it is the Japanese who are currently administering this island. Now, the Senkaku Island is not just one island. It is a group of 5 small islands, and it is currently uninhabited. Uninhabited means there is no human presence in these islands. Now, out of these 5, the biggest island is called as Otsuri Island, which covers about 1.4 square miles in geography. So you can understand how small these islands are in terms of its presence in the waters. Now, in which water does these islands are located? These are located in the East China Sea, which is very close to the countries who are claiming sovereignty over these islands. That is China, Japan, as well as Taiwan. Right? So in the map, if you want to see where is Senkaku Island located, this is the map of East China Sea, and this is the area where Senkaku Island is located. As you can understand, this is Taiwan, this is mainland China, and these islands and the sum of these islands, all of this belong to sovereign territory of Japan. So let us zoom on this particular part. You need to understand these islands which I've highlighted here, these belongs to Japanese, whereas Diaoyu Island or Senkaku Island, which is the another name of Senkaku Island, it is located here just north of the Japanese handful of islands, east towards the Taiwan, and southwest from the China. So this is the location of Senkaku Island, exactly in the which part of the world? That is in the East China Sea. Now, Senkaku Island is very important. So why are these countries claiming the sovereignty over Senkaku Islands? Now, you need to understand at the time, or a brief period of time when US was ruling over this island, there's estimated that this island is sitting on top of large hydrocarbon resources. Now, all these countries, China, Taiwan, and Japan, all of these do not have adequate hydrocarbons, and therefore they depend on imports to fulfill their domestic needs of hydrocarbons. So that is why the first reason is because of the expected presence of hydrocarbons, all these 3 countries are claiming sovereignty over Senkaku Island. But it is more economical than it is political. You need to understand there are attempts made by countries to engage in resource extraction. So whenever one country tried to extract resources, it is met by protest by another countries. Because this issue now has become political. All of these countries want to hold Senkaku Islands because it is a way of asserting their sovereignty in a region which is already disputed. So this is the reason why all these 3 countries want Senkaku Island. Now, what is this island issue? You need to understand automatically this issue would have been solved if these three parties involved in the dispute had nicer relationship. But this is not the case in this area. First of all, China and Japan have a very complex bilateral relationship. First of all, earlier few years before, it was Japan who was a dominating power in this region, especially at that time before World Wars. Now, Japanese at that time tried to colonize most of the Southeast Asia, and they are responsible for historical aggressions in this area. Now, presently, it is the China who is trying to flex its muscle because of its larger military as well as larger economic presence. So this is the reason why this issue remains unsolved. Similarly, both of these countries are currently under leaders who have very strong nationalist credentials. China is led by almost an authoritarian leadership led by President Xi Jinping, and Japan right now is under Sanae Takaichi. And I have to tell you, Sanae Takaichi is one of the most vociferous and nationalist leaders who have emerged in Japan's politics after Shinzo Abe. So both of these countries who are led by nationalist leaders, they are not willing to stand down on this issue, and they are trying to consolidate domestic support using the pretext of this Senkaku dispute. So that is why the probability of this dispute to be solved in near future is almost next to impossible. Now, there is another factor why both of these countries can't agree upon who can administer these islands. This is because of the history of this dispute. Now, I need to understand this dispute originates from many years before, that is from 1885. At that time, Japan was a dominant imperial power in the region, and it has claimed that it conducted survey and found no Qing presence. Qing dynasty is one of the most influential historical dynasty of the present day China. So when it realized that this was not under control of any dynasty or any country at that time, so it used this excuse to have an administrative control of this region. Now, the formal incorporation of Senkaku Island in Japan happened in 1895 after they defeated China in the first Sino-Japanese War, and Japan at that time erected sovereignty markers and formally incorporated these Senkaku Islands into the Okinawa prefecture, in which it exists even today. Now, after 1895, Japan also annexed Taiwan under the Treaty of Shimonoseki, and that is why Japan has said that both of these territories, Taiwan and Senkaku Islands, belong to them differently. Now, Chinese have another expectation or another point of view of this dispute. China said that when you annex Taiwan, it automatically meant that Taiwan was supposed to control Senkaku Island. So it is just one agreement that you could have solved. But Japan denied this accusation, saying that we incorporated both of these territories into Japan independently with different treaties. Okay. So this is Japan's stand on this region. Now, naturally, after the end of World War II, when Japan was devastated, most likely by the 2 atomic bombs that were thrown by US, Japan lost this Senkaku Islands also, and it was United States who gained the control of the Senkaku Island in the 1951 Treaty of Peace, which is signed with Japan. Now, the Senkaku Islands remained under the US control for a greater part of 26 years, and they relinquished this control back to Japanese only in 1971 when they signed Okinawa Reversion Agreement. So not just Senkaku, but also the Okinawa territory of Japan was handed them back by the US. Now, naturally, this treaty, when it was signed between Japan and US, it was protested by both of the disputed parties in this, that is the China and Taiwan, but Japan has insisted, or it has insisted, that both of these countries have no claim on the islands because this island historically has been under the control of Japan, and it stays even so in the present times. Now, what is the current status of this dispute? You need to understand all of these countries, that is the Japan, China and Taiwan, all of these continue to hold their claims over this Senkaku Islands, and this issue flares up periodically. Now, in 2012, for instance, Japan government, it bought 3 of these islands from the families who actually were owners of these islands, and this resulted into demonstration in mainland China, and they targeted Japanese products and outlets. Similarly, in recent times, you have seen both China has become militarily dominant in this region and is trying to increasingly deploy its military vessels, most likely its ships in the region. And the similar kind of response is also done by Japan on its own and by the support of US also. So this existence of high frequency patrols conducted by both Japanese as well as Chinese Coast Guard has kept the tensions high. Similarly, what is the US position on this issue? Now, you need to understand after 1951, Japan and US signed a friendship agreement or a treaty of peace. And under this treaty of peace, even today, the US recognizes Japanese administration of Senkaku Islands. So tomorrow, if there is a military dispute between China and Japan over these Senkaku Islands, Article 5 of US-Japan Security Treaty, it would ensure that any attack on Senkaku Island would elicit a US military obligation to free that island from any foreign attack which is done on a Japanese territory. So that is why this issue has a potential to become a very big issue, particularly an issue which may involve the conflict between China and US. And that is why it is my opinion that is why China has still not intervened in this issue militarily, because of the fear of US presence in the region. Okay, so this is the current status of Senkaku Islands. Now, before solving the question that I showed you at the start of our today's discussion, we have a very important announcement that I need to make. Now we have a batch which is starting from tomorrow, that is 18th of November, both for 2027 and 2028. So students who are looking to give exams in those years, this is your best option to take one of our batches. Similarly, if you take admissions in these batches, every of your GS and CSAT subjects will be taken care of by us, and it will be taught to you by subject matter experts. In addition to that, you also have options of one-to-one mentorship, residential programs, all of which are exclusive to our P2I foundation batches, right? To take admissions in one of these batches, you need to make a payment. But before making a payment, please remember one thing. If you use this code ATS Live, you are going to get maximum discounts up to 7,000 rupees, not on just 2027, but also on 2028 courses and also on optional courses. So please remember, learn to thrive with ATS Live. Okay. Now let us come back to our question. Which one of the following statement best reflects the issue of Senkaku Island? Just read the option B. China and Japan engage in maritime dispute over these islands in East China Sea. This is the best option out of the four. Rest three are incorrect. So option B is your right answer to this question. Okay. Now, before ending this video, this is where you'd find the notes, ATS Live. And if you have troubles finding the Telegram channel, you can always scan this QR code. I'll see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please have a very good night. And please do not forget to subscribe to our channel for similar updates on anything important, not just from news perspective, but also from UPSC exams perspective. Okay. So please have a very good night.